I declare and decree in this season, I will submit to the voice of the Holy Spirit calling my name. I am walking in the fullness of His purpose and plan for me and my life. It is my Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of She Emerged, the Manifestation of Me, with me, your host, S.H.E. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate your continued support. I hope you guys are all still enjoying and engaging with the content in the podcast because you love it. Hopefully, in the new year, I will have some new and exciting topics to go through. We're still going to stay in the same vein, though, because I feel like this mental health is a big thing and a big deal, and it needs to be talked about. So, this is a bonus episode. In my last episode, I kind of touched on and talked about my toxic relationship with my mother and some of the things that I went through as a child. And I just want to say this because I feel like it needs to be said. Me discussing my truth is in no way to bash my mom. It's not. My mother could only give me what she had to give. That's just that. She is who she is. I've forgiven her. We are in a better place. She is, my mother. But that doesn't negate the fact that I went through some things. That doesn't negate the fact that I suffered some things. Now, were there some things she could have done differently? Absolutely. We could all do things differently. Were there opportunities for her to be better? Absolutely. But that's her cross to bear. I have my own crosses to bear. They just so happen to involve her. So me speaking about the things that I've experienced is in no way to defame her character or, make her look bad. It's not about that. It's about opening the door for the conversation on the effects, the long-lasting, lifelong effects of childhood trauma, and giving a voice to victims. When I first started going through my healing journey, I decided that I was going to be the person that I needed when I was a child. This platform is built on that, on being an advocate, on being a resource, on being a voice for the voiceless, for women and children and anybody who has survived, is suffering currently, or coming out of abuse. That's that. Here's the thing. The things that I suffered as a child had lifelong consequences for me. I'm the person who has to live in this body and live with those memories. And I'm the person who had to heal from them. So I have every right to speak my truth, as does any victim. And that's just that. Let's be honest. There is a weight and a lot of psychological disorders that come along with and can stem from childhood trauma. And although, the elders still live by the code of what goes on in this house stays in this house, and everything ain't for everybody. Well, hell, if it was for somebody, if you had ever intended on addressing it, then a lot of it wouldn't have happened. And some of us will be a lot mentally healthier as adults, but we're not, because the solution is just get over it. Well, that doesn't always work. And then when we grow up to be dysfunctional adolescents and teenagers and adults, then you talk about us and you demonize us on a whole other level. Like, I don't know what's wrong with them. Why that? Well, because they went through some things that you ignored and you overlooked. And for me personally, I was heavily demonized and criticized for my behaviors, um, called a liar for speaking out and being honest about the things that I suffered for a long time. For a long time. And when you do that, now you have this child that is internalizing all the negative connotations that you're speaking over them. And after hearing it for so long and so much, they can start to embody it. And now they're walking in it because they believe that that is who they are. And they think that they're crazy. And that's not fair because I wasn't crazy. I was not a liar. I was not a thief. I was trying to survive. But it was easier to call me a liar and a thief than to ask me why I was stealing or what I was stealing. Because if a child is going out in the world stealing food, and I'm not talking about candy and snacks, I mean food, 9 times out of 10, they're hungry. If a child is going out stealing clothes, 9 times out of 10 is because they need them. But if you don't ask the right questions, you won't get the right answers. And so, again, in my position, it was easier to drag my name, attach all these negative connotations to me that kind of followed me, um, rather than be honest with what was going on right in front of everybody's face. Because it's not like people didn't know what my living conditions. It's not like people didn't know, what my mother was going through. And if you cared that much, why weren't you more aggressive in your help for her? And don't get me wrong, there were people who stepped in from time to time and tried their best to help me. Some of those people made a genuine, authentic effort, and some of them just did it to say that they did it. And because they were jaded by all the negative and nasty things that were said about me, I didn't stand a chance in their household either. Not only that, they talked about me so badly in front of their children that their children then took on those attitudes and positions about me. So it's not even like I had a peer outlet in some of those situations. In the rare moments that I thought I did have a peer outlet, I was quickly reminded that these people are not your friend. And it was because it trickles down. The adults it was fruit from the poisonous tree. They had poisoned the tree. And those things that they said about me kind of followed me and marred not just my image to other people, but also affected the way that I saw myself. Because why was I not worthy of being helped? Why was I not worthy of a little bit of grace and understanding? And some of those moments were so heavy that I went through different periods where I didn't want to live, where I absolutely attempted to unalive myself. But because people would rather live in denial and delusion, oh, she didn't really want to die. Well, I didn't really have a whole lot of reasons to live either. What about my situation was so ideal that that somebody would voluntarily want to live in that? But again, that will require people to actually acknowledge a situation, and they didn't want to. So it was easier to just make me the bad guy. And for a long time, I lived with that. For a long time, I accepted being the bad guy. Just being a bad, broken, rebellious, impulsive, delinquent kid. Because that is what I was told on repeat. Not many people pulled me to the side and said, "It's not your fault." Nobody apologized. I was rarely, if ever, told that I was loved. I was not taught to by most to value myself. I was made to feel a lot of times like a burden, an inconvenience. I'm a child. I didn't ask to be here. I'm not the one with the issues. Why is it all my fault? Y'all smiling in her face, making her feel like she's doing everything correct. But you are dragging the child. The name calling, that stuff heavily affected me, and it heavily affected my mental health. I still have PTSD. There are certain spaces and places that I do not put myself in because it's a trigger. I get anxious, I get uncomfortable. It's almost like a physical reaction, but nobody will ever acknowledge that. It is easier to just say, oh, she's overreacting, she's being dramatic. I literally have physical medical conditions that I will live with for the rest of my life because of some of the abuse I endured. But nobody will ever acknowledge that. It is easier to just say she's wrong. And so for a long time, I held on to that and I walked in it until I decided to walk out of it and decided to just heal and be better. And in the process of me healing and learning to be better and evolving into the best version of myself, I also made a commitment to be the person I needed when I was a child, to be a voice, to be an advocate, to be a safe space, to help provide safety when possible, to listen, to hear and understand, to meet people where they are. Because people need that. And is it easier to just move on and dismiss it? Absolutely. But who does that benefit? We just end up with another generation of broken, 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 dysfunctional or functioning in dysfunction, when we could be advocating for and encouraging um, to get the appropriate assistance so that we can be mentally healthy as well as physically healthy. Why are we still victim shaming? I felt ashamed for a very long time and awkward and embarrassed and out of place. And that was unfair to me. But I was also being unfair to myself because when I got to an age of knowing, I still carried that with me until I decided to heal. And now that I'm on my healing journey, I'm going to hold to my commitment to be the person I needed when I was a kid. And that's that. I also wanted to touch on and just bring some awareness to certain psychological disorders that come along with childhood trauma. Um, so, a lot of survivors and those that are actively being abused start to embody and develop psychiatric difficulties that they can carry with them. For me, I have PTSD and anxiety. I do have seasonal depression. Uh, that I There are certain seasons that I just physically associate with certain things, and I have a few days where I'm down and I have to work through it. But thankfully for me, I have an amazing supportive village. My sister friends are the best. My husband is hands down an amazing person, an amazing man, amazing husband, support. He is like my best friend. My children, my adult children, are grown and they get it and they understand and they're supportive as well. So, my situation is a little different now, and I have a better support system of people who can love me through those low moments. But there are a lot of people out here who don't have that. Um, and so some of the other psychological or psychiatric difficulties that come from being a survivor of childhood trauma uh, are, but they're not limited to, um, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, PTSD, um, outward uh, aggression, impulsiveness, delinquency, hyperactivity, and substance abuse. Some of the more complex things that can develop, borderline personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, and these things absolutely need some clinical treatment. I can tell you that I personally have walked through the suicidal ideation. I do have moments, I still suffer with PTSD, and I have seasonal depression. And I am well into my 40s. But the level of trauma still, um, although I've forgiven and am healing is an ongoing process. And I just believe that people don't get that. They have like a get over it type of mentality. But it's not easy. It's not easy. There have been moments, days when my husband had to pick me up out of the floor, just overcome with emotion, just tired, just wanting to be free from it until I got to a healthy place and got the resources I needed to get healthy. So if we're not supporting victims, uh, and we're not providing a safe space for people to get healthy, they won't. People need a support system. They need a safe space. They need to not be made to feel guilty or bear the burden of protecting their abusers or the person that neglected them and failed to provide them the things that they need. But that is also a thing where they're guilted and if and or demeaned or and belittled and badgered to the point where they just surrender and they just accept it because they're being told they should. The devil is a liar. They should not. And no child or person deserves to have anything taken away from them in that manner. And nobody has the right to silence you, take your voice from you. Nobody has that right. And just agree to, if you can't own it, agree to disagree. And if you find that the person that you're seeking an apology from can't give it to you, forgive them anyway and move on. That was one of the hardest things I had to do. Forgive anyway and move on because I will never get an apology from any of them. And I know this. And it took me a long time to come to terms with that as well. They're just never going to apologize because even now in my adult life, believe it or not, there are still some that still try to put negative toe tags on me because they just don't want to acknowledge the fact that I was abused, I was neglected, I was mistreated. So it's easier to keep calling me crazy even now in my grown adult life and keep dragging my name through the mud just to justify somebody else's ill behavior. That's horrible. A victim speaking out is not about the abuser. It's about the victim being able to free themselves from the burden that they're carrying. It's about the victim finding their footing and finding their voice and being able to be free from the bondage of those acts. And I'm saying all that because all of this to say we need to stop victim shaming. We need to stop pushing the narrative of what goes on in this house stays in this house. Now, don't get me wrong, not everything is for everybody. But if we keep teaching our children that just because an adult says something, it is fact, it is biblical, these things will keep happening. We have to be more honest with our children about the things that are going on around them. Respect is due to a dog, so respect is absolutely due to a child. And just because somebody is older than me or older than a child doesn't automatically make them right. Yes, teach your children to respect adults, but also teach them to be aware that every adult is not a good adult. Because that mentality that everything that comes out of every adult's mouth is gospel is what gives them opportunity to create fear and manipulate a child into an abusive situation. I wasn't taught to value myself. It was easy for I was basically like an unprotected kid. I didn't learn to value myself too much later in life. I didn't know and learn and understand who I was and whose I was and what power I had over my life until I was much older because nobody ever talked to me about those things. Nobody encouraged me. I was rarely ever told that I was loved. And I carried those things with me. And so, yes, I acted out. I acted a damn fool a lot. But it was because I was hurting. It was because I didn't know how to manage my emotions properly because nobody ever taught me that. And I just needed an outlet. And then when I was old enough, I hit the ground running and ran right into multiple brick walls. That part. So, again, this platform is important to me because it is my way of doing my part, of giving back, um, being the person that I needed when I was a child, doing something bigger than me, and just being a good person because I was told for so long that I was a bad person. So I encourage you today to be vocal, to be honest, to speak your truth. If you are in an abusive situation, keep talking until somebody listens. Don't take no for an answer. You are not who and what they say you are. And as long as you are willing to hold on to the little bit of you that resides on the inside, even when you feel all hope is gone, just hold on to just hold on. It gets greater later. You are worthy of the life you desire. You deserve and are absolutely worthy of love. You are nobody's victim. You are nobody's shame. and your circumstances do not define you. It is possible to come out on the other side and be great and do great things. Don't lay down and accept defeat, and don't give them your power. And don't let anybody make you feel like you deserve the suffering that you've been through. That is it for me. I just wanted to hop on really quick and touch on a few things when it comes to childhood trauma. I wanted to give you that little tidbit about the very real psychological, psychiatric effects of childhood trauma, because so many times those things are overlooked and it's dumbed down and watered down, but there are lifelong effects, and it needs to be taken seriously, and it doesn't need to be pushed to the side. And so I just felt the need to share that and to also clarify and clear the air on what my purpose is for sharing my story, because it is mine to share. And that's that. I'm not ashamed anymore. And I'm going to do my part. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Again, I'm preparing some new things for you in the new year. Make sure you pick up your copy of the book. Check me out on TikTok, or come on over and hop on the Black Girl Follows train. There's some amazing sisters over there doing some amazing things, and it's an opportunity to engage with and support one another. As always, the sun rises and sets alone every day and still manages to shine. The moon rises and sets alone every night and still manages to light someone's way. Be the light, folks, and have a happy holiday season. I pray you all enjoy your holiday weekend, your holiday breaks with your children. Love on your babies. Life is short. Love on your loved ones. Tell the people that you love them. Try to live a little bit more, because the days are getting shorter and shorter, and people are leaving here at a rapid pace. Try to be a little selfish with your time in this season. So happy holidays.
Reaping season, and I shall reap the harvest of my labor as promised. I have been called. I am a willing vessel.